come up with the idea.
And all the neighbors would come and
Choreographer says, I need someone to walk through this. I have an idea.
He does guitar, and he never...
He would laugh when I would do Shakespeare or something.
kind of got to that place.
We finished the scene.
Hi, I'm Marlee Matlin, and I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, actually a suburb of Chicago, Morton Grove, Illinois. And actually, I became deaf at 18 months old, and everybody was certainly shocked at that, but my upbringing was about as normal as one could get. In reality, for me, the upbringing was much like an episode of The Brady Bunch. Well, I recall as a little girl thinking that I live in the present. I was that kind of person. And I enjoyed what I had, and whether it was something that my parents gave me, or the friends that I had around me, or the love and support that I got from my brothers, also the protection that they provided me. But there were bad days. For example, once when I was 11, and I remember being so angry that day for some reason, and I thought to myself, when I become an adult, when I get older than 11 years old, I'm going to write a book and tell the world that it's okay to be deaf. So perhaps that was the moment in my life where I realized that I am not going to be a little girl forever, and I knew eventually that there would be a woman down the line waiting for me, which would be who I am today. Well, people have asked me, first of all, if I remember hearing, because I became deaf when I was 18 months old, and I tell them no. But for those who might remember me as a hearing girl, because I've been told that I spoke and I heard, just like anyone else does, I tell them I don't remember that. I wouldn't wake up every morning and say, oh, it's a brand new day and I'm deaf. That's not how I operated. I just went about my business as any other little girl would. Play with my friends, or play dress up, or read Judy Blume books, or go to school and go to learn. But there were times that I was reminded that I was deaf, or quote unquote different. And I would stop and think and say, oh, right, I don't hear like they do. They remind me of me being deaf. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes it was bad. And it was bad when they made fun of me. And I learned to defend myself by either speaking out, or when I got older, just walking away from it. But all in all, and listen, all in all honesty, it's just part of growing up. It's just part of who I was. Well, I was introduced to the stage, the concept of the stage, when I was 7 years old. It was at summer camp. And a director of the camp came up to me and said, would you like to sign a song with a group of hearing girls on a stage? And I said, what's a stage? And so she showed me what a stage was, and I checked it out, and I stood on the stage, and I thought, okay, what am I supposed to do? And she gave me a sheet of paper that said, this is the song that these girls are going to be singing, and you're going to be signing it. And there'll be somebody down in the audience who will feed me cues what they're singing, but you need to memorize it, sort of, the song. So I memorized as much as I could of the song, and we rehearsed. And I fell in love with it only because my family and my friends and my teachers and my counselors, they were all in the audience, and they were smiling and applauding for me. And that's when I knew that I was hooked in doing what I was doing on the stage, which was acting. But I didn't take it seriously. I really didn't take it seriously. I didn't consider that this was going to be my goal, my career, until my mother put me in a more productive, conventional environment where we had deaf and hearing children together acting in a troupe at a place not very far from our home. And we did plays, and we did songs, and we did sign language, mime, we did everything, and I fell in love with it at that point. But I don't know a specific time. I just recall really enjoying performing for everybody. Actually, I performed at this Center on Deafness where we did those plays and the songs in sign language from 8 until I was 13 or 14 years old. But, I mean, I tried to do the stage. Then I would fly off to New York and then fly off to California and audition for the film for a completely different role, and I had lots of callbacks.
Working in construction. Well, a lot of that story is based on my life.
People know me from the film Children of the Lesser God, and how I got the role actually and how I found out was that I was on the text telephone with my agent, who asked me a lot of questions, and I thought I was alone in my room actually, and my agent said, you know what, would you do a nude scene? And I said, I'm an actor, I'll do anything. And 1 minute later she called me back and she said, you got the role. And I was sitting there on the text telephone in awe of what she just said, but yet when I turned around, right over my shoulder was my mother standing there by the door with the telephone book ready to call everybody, but crying. She was so happy. I met Henry Winkler when I was 12 years old. He happened to be paying a visit to one of our performances at the center that we were doing, and he told me that I should never let anyone tell me otherwise, whether if I wanted to be an actor. He said it was okay to be whatever you wanted to be despite the fact that you're deaf. So that stuck with me. But I sort of put it away when I got to high school. Then when I graduated from high school, I was like thinking, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Acting. I'm thinking, well, I'd like to avoid it because I knew that there were deaf actors out there that I wasn't ready to compete with. I really didn't want to compete with them. It was probably one of the lowest points in my life where I didn't, I mean, I was going through a great number of experiences that, or it was a phase. It was actually a very long phase. And it eventually took my brother to convince me to audition for Children of the Lesser God on the stage, and then that stage production led to the film version. I got the role, a supporting role in the stage production of Children of the Lesser God, and I thought, you know what, this really can't be real. They actually chose me of all the other women who auditioned. I was 19 years old. To do this role on a stage and get paid for it, it seemed unreal to me. And yet I was excited, I was very nervous, and I was in awe of the other actors who were in the production. But remember, it didn't last long where I had an opportunity to enjoy my time on the stage, and that's because the first night of our production, on opening night, a casting director from Paramount was there to find people for the film version. So these two things came down the pike at the same time, two very different things. Here I am doing the play, and they're asking me to do the play. They want me to do the film auditions at the same time. The first time I experienced the stage production, and it was hard. And my understudy loved it because she got to work a lot while I was auditioning for the movie. Lucky her. But I mean, I tried to do the stage, then I would fly off to New York, and then fly off to California and audition for the film for a completely different role, and I had lots of callbacks. And at the same time, the actors were sort of checking me out, the people from the play, and saying, oh, she's the woman who's on the play, and she's auditioning for the movie, and they were sort of, they didn't know what to make out of me, and I didn't know what to make out of myself either. I mean, I was 19 years old, I was young, I was naive. Everything was so new to me. And it wasn't like working with my friends at the Center on Deafness and just playing and acting for the fun of it. It was completely different. It was a whole different ballgame. And now, I got the role in the film, my life changed even more. I recall thinking, okay, I'm doing a movie But you know what? It's probably just going to be one movie. I'm not sure people would take me seriously. I don't know if I wouldn't take myself seriously. And as I mentioned, I was going through a great number of things that I have overcome since today. And doing the film and having a boyfriend and being away from home, and all of that came crashing down on me. And yet, that was one experience that I will never ever regret or forget in Children of a Lesser God, the film. Learning the art of movie making, learning even something as simple as the name of the crew, and learning that we're all a family. I loved it. But it didn't mean that everyone agreed with the fact that I should have won the Academy Award. Because the next day, in the papers, was right there in the papers, in the trade papers, an article by columnist Rex Reed
We were just getting it working in construction. My mom and dad were dancers, but I like going up.
The day after I won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in Children of Lesser God, I checked myself into rehab. I needed help to overcome my drug addiction. So with no one's help but my own, no family, no friends helping me to go into rehab, I did it myself. And during my rehab, it's when I got nominated for an Academy Award, of all places. But friends changed, and some of my family members didn't realize or understand what was going on. They were proud of me. They were bursting with pride, but yet with some sort of apprehension, and they kept telling me, "Don't change." But one of the biggest, I think, changes at that time for me in that period, from 19 to 21, was the fact that first of all, as I said, it was my first film, and I had to make a change for myself, not for the people out there, and without the support of people in my life so I could make the changes that would benefit me, I decided to do it, and people didn't necessarily agree with what I needed to do for myself. I put myself into rehab, and I decided that it was time to take care of my drug addiction. And I was all of 21 years old. And I got nominated for the Academy Award while I was in rehab. And hey, you know what? Who else has been nominated for an Oscar when they've been in rehab? I can't imagine I laugh at it now. But I'm not necessarily proud of the fact that I had to do that. But it's one of the heaviest times of my life. Yet it's one of the most proudest times of my life as well. If you're going to go specifically to the awards, I remember sitting at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and Bill Hurt came up on stage, and he was my boyfriend at the time. And it was a very volatile relationship. So sometimes I trusted him, and I sometimes didn't trust him. But I felt that at that very moment, that being at the Academy Awards, because he was in the business much longer than I had been in the business, he was in his element. I wasn't in my element necessarily. So I just sat there, and he said the names of the nominees and mentioned my name, naturally, as one of the nominees. And then opened the envelope, and my heart was beating a mile a minute. And he looked at me, and he signed my name. And I thought, you know what, you got to be joking. But he can't be joking because he's live on television. And I don't know if he'd do that on television live, so I just sat there, and I'm thinking, what? And he said, Marlee. And I felt so shy at the moment, so shocked at the moment, really extremely shy, more shy than shocked, because I didn't really know anybody there. And yet it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling. taking that award in my hand and validating and proving those who did not believe that I could do what I wanted to do as a person who was deaf in the entertainment field. But it didn't mean that everyone agreed with the fact that I should have won the Academy Award. Because the next day, in the papers, was right there in the papers, in the trade papers, an article by columnist Rex Reed, who said that Marlee Matlin won her Oscar last night out of pity. And that she essentially was a deaf woman playing a deaf role, which led doubts to whether or not that was acting. And who followed that was New York Magazine, who said, you know what? How is it going to be possible for a deaf actor to get more work in Hollywood? It's impossible. And that was the first time I really, really felt handicapped. But you know what? Thank goodness for Henry Winkler once again for advice. And he was my mentor eventually. He looked me in the eye once again and he said, Marlee, remember those words I told you 8 years ago? Actually, I'm an author and I've written children's books. I wrote my autobiography, and that's done. And things I haven't done yet, certainly I've done a great deal.
We were just getting working in construction. My mom and dad flight control going up.
You know, I'm hoping, just like any other actor, to be able to work in television, to work in film, have more opportunity to get that green light, and continue to inspire and motivate people. And in the end, I tell people that silence is the last thing that the world will ever hear from me. I make a lot of noise. But you know what? This time, you have a lot more work to do because you have it there in your hand. You're not done by a long shot. So I listened to him, and I just made a career for myself. And I did it on my own in Hollywood. I met people on my own. I went and created my own production company, and I think it was the only way I could do that, and to prove them wrong. And it didn't come easy. It didn't come easy. I didn't want to have a career that was trying to prove people wrong, to try to show people what I couldn't do. I could go out there and work and say, you know what, this is to prove them wrong. That's not the kind of career I wanted. I just wanted work that I loved doing. And I wanted to use the craft that I was given. And I wanted to be allowed to let me enjoy my work. And I think being a bitter person and saying screw you is not the way you do it. See what I can do? That's not the way you do it. It's not the attitude that I wanted. So I made sure that they wouldn't affect me. And those who disagreed with me, and I had to be in Hollywood with them, those who thought I was a good actor, which is fine, good, whatever. But I'm not going to let people put me down. And my parents instilled in me this attitude that I'm my own person, that I can make my own decisions, and whether people liked it or not, that's the way it was going to be. Use my gut instincts, and if something feels right or not, you just do it. It's basically common sense. And I'm a communicator, and if I have something to say, I'll say it. I'll ask the question. And that helps me in terms of developing a self-esteem. I'm not perfect, I know that. But I know who I am. Most times. But I do. If I don't like something, if I don't feel comfortable with something, I say it. Work that I've done, highlights that I feel in my life, things that I thought would make an impact, and it really, I felt, touched other people too. Let's see, one would be certainly Children of a Lesser God. Two, I think, a show I did called The West Wing. probably the L word. Probably the L word. And of course, and we cannot forget to mention the most celebrated show I've ever done. 25 million people a week watching me dance on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, of course, who would have ever expected that for me as an actor to do that show? But I had a ball because, as I mentioned, I'm an adventurer and I want to try things that I had never done, and I wanted to give it a try. And you never know if you like something until you try it. Between the two of us, in reality, I'm not really deaf. No, I just thought I wanted that Oscar, so I just faked the deafness to win it. Yeah, I have a good sense of rhythm, and I don't ask me where I get it from. I just have a good sense of rhythm. Perhaps it's part of what was in me before I lost my hearing at 18 months. Maybe it still lives inside my head. I don't know. I don't know. But I had a great teacher too, and a great dance partner who helped me learn how to dance. As an actor too, you have to memorize lines. Well, naturally, I memorized the dance. Well, it would be great to win a Grammy. No, it doesn't. American Idol? No, that's not going to work for me. I don't think I could do that. Actually, I'm an author, and I've written children's books. I wrote my autobiography, and that's done. And things I haven't done yet, certainly I've done a great deal. But I think it's a matter of, I'd love to be able to work with actors who have been around for a long time. And whether it's film or television, it doesn't matter. It's what I feel connected to. It's a matter of just connecting to what's out there. In terms of life in general, I'm a mom of 4 and a wife. And they're keepers, certainly, so I have to stay on top of everything when it comes to their lives, because they are essentially my life, too.